One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
Go ahead, you go first.
I'm Dave, and that's Marla turning down her iPad over there. She loves the show so much she listens to it twice. As it happens, Marla.
We just told our guests not to pause and be when the music comes on. No, anyway, I am Marla, and this is Mental Health Mondays, and we always remind that, this Monday has become very special to us because I say it often that any conversation that we have surrounding mental health is one worth having and one worth hearing. And I get a lot from the show. So I'm always excited. And I'm really excited about today's guest.
Well, Mental Health Mondays is a cooperative between NAMI San Fernando Valley and Loving Beyond Reason. It's brought to you every week by you. We depend on your donations. So go to lovingbeyondreason.org. Click on the donations for Mental Health Monday. Help us support bringing you this great information, education/entertainment. Next week, we want to remind you that we have Fabiana Gonzalez coming in, and we will end the month with Scott Killaby, one of our faves. But at the age of 9, our guest today began taking on the role of a parent to a mother suffering with mental illness. Despite continued challenges, she earned straight A's in school, and her hard work and success continued as she became a stand-up comedian. The founder of Funny People Cry Too, Sarah Murphree, wants to shine a light on the struggles of children of parents with mental health issues or brain differences, as we like to call it.
And you know what? I made a small error, and I said that she was the first cousin of Eddie Murphy, but I realized that it's Murphree, which makes the slight delineation there.
Excuse me, darling.
But we are very excited to hear Sarah's story and all of that she's done, and we'll be right back with Sarah Murphree.
Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
Hey guys, listen up. Learn something.
As we promised, we're
Yes.
back, and we would like to introduce you to the beautiful and informative Miss. Is it Miss or Mrs.? Mrs.
Mrs. now.
Yes, yes. Look at that, Sarah Murphree.
Oh, we have a round of applause.
Yes, yes.
Would we have it any other way? Come on, Sarah.
Woo, 3 years. 3 years in.
There you go. So we just found out as we were talking before the show that we are all children of the South, and we have something in common. That's Nashville, Tennessee.
That is true.
Yes,
That's it's actually the world is very small.
I know.
And I'm glad that you're in our small section.
I love that.
So talk to us about growing up in Nashville and how that kind of shaped your perspective, how you grew up, I think, Catholic.
Yes.
And how did that shape your perspective as well?
Wow. I grew up in Tennessee, raised very strict Catholic, and both of those places at the time had a very high stigma around mental health. You didn't talk about it, and you kind of buried your emotions. And growing up in the Catholic Church, we're taught to go to the priest. You don't talk to people about your struggles. And so as a child, that was, I quickly learned you don't tell people when you're in pain. And that was deeply embedded in me. And, as I aged, I saw all the problems that created, especially with my mother.
So I have a question. So do you have a firm recollection for yourself at what point that you had a clear connection with something's not all the way good right here in my home with my parent, with my mom?
Yes. Well, growing up, my mom always sort of acted more like a child than a parent. But
in what way? How would you characterize that?
Well,
explicitly.
So I'll put it this way. She loves to do childish things. And as a child, it was fun. But as I aged, even in high school, I'd be like 17 years old, and my mom wanted to watch Sesame Street. Like things that were so far back
Right,
to the
right.
childhood. And there were always things like that.
Right.
And, you know, when it came to being like a responsible mom, that just was not who she was. You know, even if my brother and I had like a basketball game or something, she'd be like, oh, I don't feel like going, or I don't feel like driving you. So then she just wouldn't drive us to practice. And there were things
And
that
you had to figure out a way to get there on your own, or you just missed it?
I got in the phone book and I
Wow.
called every person in the school directory. And, you know, there are things I was like 10 years old, and those kind of things I remember like, I shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
Now, when your mom first experienced, from your perspective, a break, so to speak?
Yeah, when I was 9, she had a mental breakdown, and I didn't know what had happened to her until months later. She just didn't show up to pick us up from school, and my uncle picked us up, and he was like, "Your mom's in the hospital," and then my mind like spiraled, and I knew she was not good.
Right.
Because
But you didn't have any. Yeah, you had no way of knowing
I
what
was
that
like,
meant.
Totally. And she would, you know, depression always was something she suffered with, and I didn't know it was called depression, but mom slept a lot. When she didn't want to address something, she just went to the bed.
So now you have a sibling. Is he older or younger?
Younger.
Okay, so you had a little. So you had, wow. So you kind of really took on the caregiver position to bridge the gap, not only for your mom but also for your little brother.
Yes, that's true. And I think it's so interesting because I felt kind of like Andy's mom, and actually over time my mom would get very jealous because when Andy was like 7,
He would go to you for answers, and he would go to you for.
Yeah. And she'd get so upset with me, and I would speak to her like an adult, like, Mom, I didn't ask for him to come to me, but you have to get out of bed. You have to pack lunches. Like, you have to.
Right.
If you want
Assume
the
the
respect of a
role,
mom,
yes.
you have to take on the role of mom. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
perspective for a child, and then did you feel yourself sort of maturing faster than the friends around you and when did you look around and say, man, there's the things and my responsibilities are a lot different from my girlfriend's responsibilities?
Yes. I think that's when I knew something was wrong with mom, is when I began to go to friends' houses. Because as a child, she was the only mom I have. And I was like, okay, maybe this is just life. But as I went to other friends' houses and saw their moms, you know, could cook, would stay up, you know, they wouldn't like go to sleep or nap all the
They
time.
were engaged.
Yes. Yeah, engaged parents.
Was your father in the picture?
He was, and he is amazing. I call him like mom plus dad, but my parents separated when I was 9.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So my life was mom on the weekdays, dad on the weekends. And, you know, looking back on it, my dad, he never had really heard of mental illness, and he
He just didn't know how to deal with the behavior that was so.
he didn't know it was as alarming, and he was like, I can't take you away from your mother.
Right.
Because the thing about mom, she could turn it on in the public. And that was something that, like, you know, if people knew my mother, who she was behind
The
scenes,
scenes,
Yes.
yeah.
they wouldn't believe me. And
Right.
that happened when I was 12. I asked my aunt for help, and she did not. She thought I was making these stories up.
So even your mom's family didn't recognize the depths of the struggle that she was actually dealing with.
You know, I think they didn't want to recognize it because then they are siblings with the woman with a mental health condition.
I call that, by the way, Sarah, the can of worms. And it's been David and I's experience as well. That when David really wants to talk on the phone here. I don't.
Yeah, you know, it's the problem with these devices. Everything rings now, so everything is turned off, and my watch is still ringing.
Okay.
Let's turn that sucker down.
So what I wanted. So for me, I call it the can of worms, and the can of worms just means once you open up the can of worms, and this is what I think is hard for people to help with mental illness. Now I feel like it's a blessing that I've identified. Oh, it's mental illness. But now, what do I do with the worms? Because it's clear that this is what this is. And I think that, you know, that's something that your family probably may have possibly been feeling. But we're going to talk more when we come back from this break. Sarah Murphree, Don't Want to Move. It's a great show. We'll be right back.
You may not realize it, but these words, often used to describe someone with a mental health condition, can be very harmful. In a country where 1 in 5 people are affected by a mental health condition, it's time for all of us to step up and change the conversation. Just because someone's struggle isn't obvious on the outside doesn't mean they aren't hurting on the inside. We need to see the person, not the condition. Join with me, pledge to be stigma-free.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is a real illness. You can get PTSD after living through or seeing a traumatic event such as war, a hurricane, rape, physical abuse, or a bad accident.
PTSD makes you feel stressed and afraid. After the danger is over, it affects your life and the people around you.
PTSD can cause problems like flashbacks, or feeling like the event is happening all over again, trouble sleeping or nightmares, feeling alone, angry outbursts, feeling worried, guilty, or sad.
PTSD can happen to anyone, even children. Medicines can help you feel less afraid and tense. It might take a few weeks for them to work. Talking to a specifically trained doctor or counselor also helps many people with PTSD.
If you or anyone you know needs help dealing with any of these issues, please seek professional help. This message is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing
Here.
with a firecracker.
Okay, so we're back. And so, Sarah, you were...
It's poll time.
It is?
No, it's not.
I was just
checking on you.
So, Sarah, we were engaged in a conversation about opening up the can of worms. And what you were speaking about, even family.
Right.
So your aunt, there's that fear of no one really is able to say, oh, we recognize, let us help you. So you kind of felt alone in a situation that you were the child actually recognizing and managing and really didn't have the support. So you talk to us a little bit more about that and how that led to you actually turning the corner and getting help. When did that happen?
Yeah, I remember vividly when I told my aunt something was wrong with Mom, and it was the first time I caught Mom.
This is her sister?
Her sister,
Okay.
yes. My mom was also the youngest of 9 children, and I have a huge family, 31st cousins, and...
What?
Wow.
So my parents got separated. My mom moved back in with my grandpa. So we lived with grandpa, which kind of meant like we had open door policy. So people were in and out constantly. And it was very easy to kind of just overlook Mom sleeping upstairs because there's so many people in the household. But when I was 12, I witnessed Mom talking to the walls. And it was frightening. I call it, when some people have an episode, their eyes change.
They do.
And
our son, by the way, is schizoaffective disorder, so we understand it fully.
Yes, that is exactly what happened. And she looked at me, and I remember feeling like she could hurt me because she doesn't know who I am.
She was vacant. Right. It's
yeah.
that glare, like.
Yes, it's that. It's like a demon has come over, and then she'll come out of it, and she won't remember what she said or did. And to me, I'm like, this is so traumatic, but you don't even remember. So how can we even get through this?
Wow, that is and so in those moments, what would you do?
Well, when I spoke to my aunt, that's what prompted it. I was like, Mom is talking to the walls. And I remember in my aunt's eyes, I knew she knew. And
now, was there a diagnosis at this point?
No.
Because they don't deal with it. She said that,
never heard the word.
Right. We understand that fully.
But I'm speaking specifically because you said she had been to the hospital. At 9, she went to the hospital. She didn't get a diagnosis when she was at the hospital?
She didn't. And I could not get information about that to save my life till I was older. But my aunt was like, I know your mom is, a little different, but she just needs more vegetables and sunshine. And then it kind of became, have you asked her to eat a salad with you? Have you taken her on a walk?
As it's your responsibility.
No, but listen to the fixes. The fixes are fresh vegetables and sunshine. Like, in other words,
but I'm saying, and it's also your responsibility, Sarah's responsibility for making sure that she gets those things.
Just to engage her, I think they were saying, you're the one.
You tried
right?
this. Yeah. And I did. It was like 12-year-old. I was like,
okay,
we're gonna get
vegetables.
broccoli
I
in the
need some
house every
lettuce.
night. Yes.
Where's my
Wow.
lettuce?
Yes.
Drop off some tomatoes.
Eat those greens, Mom.
Man.
And it didn't work. And I was like, okay, there's something more here.
Right.
Yeah. And I think through time, I realized I was different because I would go to friends' homes and, they'd be talking and I would love to spend time with the parents. And I feel like I related to all the parents. So you'd see me at a slumber party and I'm probably in the kitchen with the parents talking about
As one person with responsibility speaking to another responsible person.
She's in the middle of the bed of her best friend's mother and father. So, guys,
so
what are we
real.
watching on TV tonight, huh?
Yes.
How about a little Johnny Carson?
Those kids, aren't they?
They say the darndest thing.
Yeah, and we laugh to keep from crying, so we do commiserate. So, at that point, did your mom ever receive a diagnosis?
She did when I was in college.
Okay.
So, and that's the thing. So I never even told anybody after that 12-year-old experience until I was 24.
Wow.
I didn't tell anybody because as a child, they always say, tell a trusted adult if something's wrong. And the adult I trusted the most didn't believe me.
Yeah.
And I was like, if she doesn't, Mom's only sister, nobody ever will.
I'm stuck here. Like, I'm dealing with this, and no one's ever going to be able to acknowledge it. And I can't get acknowledgement, I can't get help.
Yes.
Was there a difference with the way that you handled it versus your brother?
This is so interesting.
Other than the responsibility, because you seem to have had all the responsibility.
Yeah, I've met a lot of children of parents with mental illness, and what I've learned is one usually overcompensates, like the overachiever, having to do everything. That was kind of my role. And one kind of checks out. And my brother definitely went kind of, he would disassociate a lot. And, when I tell him about our childhood, I realize he's kind of blocked a lot of it.
Right. It's painful.
Yes, very painful.
It's what the brain does a lot of the times to protect us.
That is so true.
For sure.
And so then how did you find NAMI?
That was my next question.
Well, it's, I realized I started reading books about mental illness, memoirs, and that is when I knew I wasn't alone. I remember the first book I read was Running with Scissors, which is a pretty dysfunctional family. And I was like, whoa, wait, this happens to other families?
Right.
And I just went on this like memoir reading binge. And honestly, I feel like writing and reading healed me during those years. Because now I have a great relationship with my aunt, and she was like, your mom knew something, because when I was younger, my mom told me, she was like, Sarah, nobody cares about your feelings or your emotions, so you need to write them down every night. She goes, I can't deal with them. And every night she was very on me about writing my pain and feelings. So now I look back and I'm like,
she knew she couldn't be available.
It's like she was aware I can't be mom. So, and she'd always leave
and
a journal.
almost that you might have needed some self-validation going on there, because she couldn't actually validate what you were feeling.
That's so true, yeah. And it's funny because if people often ask, like, how are you okay? And I feel like writing every day. And the writing became Dear Journal. And then as time progressed, it became Dear God.
Wow.
And I really felt like, okay, I just would talk to God every night.
Wow.
It was very healing.
No better friend.
Yes.
No better friend.
When we come back, we're going to find out exactly how Sarah found NAMI and then started a group that Funny People Cry
Too. That's right.
And how she just tripped into comedy. That's crazy. We'll be right back. Don't move.
All right, so forgive me for being discombobulated at the beginning of the last segment. I'm dealing with some family issues that I'm actually trying to keep under wraps and deal with as we do the show. As they say in showbiz, the show must go on. But the fun music tells us what, Marla?
That is pole time.
Yes,
I
and
turned
we
into
have
some
our
kind of weird.
We
like,
have our
pole
resident
dancer.
pole dancer
That's
that
weird.
dances. Marla dances without a pole.
I normally do this, but today
She's the
Sarah
only
has given
pole
me new
dancer in the
energy.
world that doesn't use the pole.
I'm Macarena-ing. All kind of things are happening here.
Last week, we asked the poll question, which one of these conditions are you most likely to develop? A, diabetes, B, cancer, C, any kind of mental illness or heart disease.
Let's give Sarah first. Let's give her a stab at it. We always
That's
give our
right.
guests.
That's Sarah.
So let
what
me
do
ask you
think?
again, Sarah.
Okay.
Which of these conditions are you most likely to develop? Diabetes, cancer of any kind, or is there a C?
Mental illness.
Mental
yes.
illness or heart disease.
I think cancer.
Okay, Sarah.
Oh,
This is a mental illness show.
Yes, it was almost in the cliff notes, and we forgot, and we left the cliff note books open on the table.
You know what?
I thought y'all were.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Sarah Murphree. She's a comedian. She was kidding.
And that's not a bad strategy. They're trying to trick me. So you are more likely to experience mental illness than you are to develop heart disease, diabetes, or cancer of any kind. Marla, what's the poll question for
Now,
next
Sarah,
week?
you're going to get a new
That's
shot,
real.
and here's the good thing: we won't even know the answer till next week. So you can look
Great,
back
okay.
on social media and see the show next week and see what is the number of U.S. adults living with post-traumatic stress syndrome: 5 million, 12 million, or 18 million.
18 million.
Okay, so that's Sarah. So Sarah said 18 million.
And we'll see if
We're
she's
gonna
correct
find
next
out
week.
if Sarah Murphree was right about the second poll question. Tune in next week. All
Okay,
right.
we're back. So Sarah, tell us about Funny People Cry Too, and how was that born?
How was that born? So I moved to Los Angeles for writing, acting, and that was totally a world I didn't expect. You know, I did that in the South, very different worlds.
Oh, so you did. So I was going to say, was this just an
This is
apparition
random.
you
No,
had?
this
Like,
was
just,
like-
you know what? I'm going to be an actress.
No, it was you know, I had been acting and writing, all of that, performing. I went to an art high school in Nashville, and it was a fight to do this stuff. Nobody in my family is doing this. My parents always thought it was a dream that would die, and it just got to the point where I felt like if I stay here in Tennessee, then I feel like I'll just crumble.
You're burying your dream.
I was very stifled as an artistic person there. So when I was 24, you know, Dad and I drove cross country, and
Wow.
he came with me, and it was great. And I had the car and like $1,500 and a lot of faith through all my years
Wow.
talking to God. So, but I came here, and as soon as I set foot, you know, I was
Kind of
like,
new.
this is where I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be.
You knew.
And I will say, you know, the first few months were great, and then I realized LA is so expensive. It was work to live.
I didn't want to say anything, but for those who are
Took you a few months to
those who are
understand that. Wow.
when she said, first of all, I'm not sure Sarah's age, which is irrelevant, because I was thinking to myself, it had to be 1910 if $1,500 got her
She got
someplace
set up.
far. Because when you said $1,500, I almost said, what?
Yeah,
$1,500? Like, where did that go? That's like two visits to Whole Foods.
Yeah,
But you
it was
persevered.
rough.
Yeah.
And I could not get a job to save my life. I mean, I was just trying to wait tables. I was just trying to do anything.
Right.
Right.
And once I got work, you know, my life was work to live. And it was like the acting and writing, it was going, but I didn't have a life because you work and then you memorize lines alone.
Right.
And that's what I didn't realize about LA is you spend so much time by yourself that
The
I
movie
was like,
Crash.
Big city,
yeah,
very
yeah.
lonely.
It was like
Loneliness in the
whoa.
crowd.
It's almost unbelievable. It's like the first time I heard somebody who was married say that they were lonely, and I was like, how's that possible? But then I got it. Later I got it.
Wow. Yeah, that's so.
So what
real.
you're saying about LA, for those who don't know, it's very, very true.
Yeah, it's very true. And I always say, because my husband's an actor, but he's an introvert, and I always say the introverts do very well in LA, but the extroverts, struggling.
Right. Because
Struggling.
it is rough for people to connect. And in LA, when people say, just for information's sake, what do you do? It's what can you do for me? And so everyone has a thing. So
That's true. Yeah.
you know, anyway. So you got into, how'd you find comedy?
I realized I had lost myself. I didn't laugh, and I would gotten very, and I don't even call it depressed. I call it numb, because I was going through the motions, and you know, you move a lot, work a lot, but I was like, I felt like no joy in my life, and I was like, this acting thing is working, but like, whoa, this is lonely, and this is not why I came into to do this. This is not why I want to do this. So I went to a stand-up show. I was like, I need to go somewhere where I can laugh. And I'd never seen a big production stand-up show, and as soon as I was in that show, I remember I was at the Comedy Store, everyone was broke and depressed and lonely, and I was like, they're honest. And I craved that honesty, and I couldn't find it out here. So I took a class. I was like, those are my people.
So where'd you go, to the Improv?
I went to Jerry Corley. It's called the Comedy Clinic.
Okay.
And once again, everyone's like 60 and 55, and I'm like, these are really my people because I never feel my age.
I found my crew.
Like, this is great. And I never even saw this going someplace. But it was kind of for me because I had to get to a place where I stopped caring what people think. And coming from the family I did,
That's all that mattered.
Totally.
Perception was everything. What you present.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with the reality of what's behind the curtain.
That's so true. And I was like, this desire to be liked, I feel like often came from my childhood of wanting that attention from mom. And I was like, I need to get on a stage and like not. And there's a lot of shows, and during that class I did where nobody laughed at my jokes, and that is like the worst feeling in the world. But I was like,
I've been there. I did stand-up comedy.
Yes. Ooh, they don't laugh. You're like,
the first couple times I was like, at least I'm cute and they like my breasts because I get to stand here and they're good with it.
And I was like, cock-a-little-doo. Your wife, where's my wife? That's not her on that stage bombing.
So from that, you started, did you network with other comedians and find out that you were not alone in your past?
Totally. And I got really close to the teacher, and he was like, I think you really have a thing for this. So he gave me a referral to the Comedy Store. And at the time I was a clown for a living, so I was kind of like,
how much?
Literally.
What? I was like the wrath.
Literally.
I look very smiley, but for have this like smiley human be like, I hate being a clown.
Wow.
Let me tell you my clown life. It was kind of my stick.
Clown life is a thing. Wow.
Well, yes.
So now, were you more into it because at the beginning for the catharsis that you were experiencing, or was it something that you knew this is going to be a thing?
Well,
speaking specifically of Funny People Cry Too.
Yes, my family's very funny. My mom's never been on meds or had help in her life, but she laughs at herself. And I really think that's how she's still alive.
Wow.
So she did give me that gift. So I kind of felt at home. But I realized it was like the green room, which is behind the scenes, is where I really loved, because all these people who were funny, they got so tired of being funny.
Right. Yeah.
And when
behind the stick.
Yeah. And
they were sharing this raw truth, like you said. There's an honesty there. That transforms into comedy.
That is so true. And I was like, I learned, every great joke is born from great pain, but there's no place to share this pain. And being with all these stand-ups, I was like, all of us are desperate to like be heard,
right?
As not be like the clown,
right?
Like I really went from class clown growing up to a real clown,
right?
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm constantly funny girl. Like not always that. This is like.
And now I actually have the makeup.
Yes.
We're gonna come right back. Our time is always short. We'll be right back with more Sarah Murphree.
Bad.
What are you doing?
Worthless.
Don't trust them. They'll hurt you. You're worthless. It's pointless.
When the pain of schizophrenia meets hope, everything can change. Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.
This is another one of those shows where I honestly just feel like we just need more time.
Yeah, you know what? But we keep it tight and chocked full with education, entertainment, and information. Our guest has been Sarah Murphree. Sarah, you've been telling us really and shining light on the perspective and the plight of children that grow up with parents with mental health issues and the level of responsibility, and rightly so, people to pay attention to the parent. And a lot of times they think that the child is normal, so that's just something that you should be able to deal with. Yeah. But no child should have to deal with that level of responsibility. So we appreciate you for that. that, as well as being able to, bring some laughter and lighten the moment in the midst of our pain. That's especially lately, that's very important.
Or just to expose the truth and connect with people who are generally meant to entertain. So what I want to ask you right now is, where Funny People Cry Too?
Mm-hmm.
How do is that something that can be found? Like, tell us where to find you. Tell them. That's your camera right there.
There's a website, Funny People Cry Too, and a YouTube channel and an Instagram, and it started as a live show, has branched into a blog. And if you feel led to tell your story, you can just go to funnypeoplecry2.com and reach out. And our first show sold out.
Wow.
I know, which, is kind of amazing in LA.
That is.
Just
exactly.
get in here.
That is.
But I say that because it's an amazing audience where you just know people are sharing their journeys.
They're vulnerable.
And you just, I feel like it's a show of healing, really, because people share truths they've never shared.
Absolutely.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much. We won't be the last. We always have great things planned. We're in the middle of dealing with organizing our telethon. We'd like to welcome you to come back and be part of our celebrity telethon.
And by the way, this is Mental Health Awareness Month, so NAMI always has their NAMI Walk around this time. May 22nd, I think, this year is the NAMI Walk. It's a virtual event this year. But we need you guys to support us, so please check out all of your local NAMI chapters for the walk in your area. And we will be here next Monday, and the Monday after that, and the Monday after that, and every Monday after that to bring you Mental Health Monday. Thank you guys for coming. Thanks for everybody in the chat room, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Sarah, most of all.
You were great.
Thank you. See ya.